Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric, and this is another Solocast. So I'm going to be reviewing a question that I put out to the socials. I wanted to get feedback. I want to get thoughts, insights, opinions about what is the best order of importance for three things that we frequently talk about on this. It's basically part of some of the taglines here, but we're talking about wellness, we're talking about leadership and culture, like which is most important. And without much more context, I just wanted to throw that out there. We got a lot of feedback on Instagram and LinkedIn, so I kind of wanted to roll through a lot of the opinions because they're all significantly valuable. There's certainly a lot of professional and life experience in the folks that chimed in to offer their insight, and it's really one of those things where you can't go wrong. You have to attack all three on a personal level and a team level, but that's kind of the point of it, right? A lot of people are going to hear those things and prioritize them a little bit differently and then articulate that differently. So here we go. Jeremy, he put leadership first, and his reason is because it dictates organizational culture and wellness, right? So it's that top-down approach that a lot of people would think about. Certainly, there's a lot of influence when you have rank, when you have power, when you have control, right? To use a plain word in an organization, regardless of the type of organization. We had somebody, Kurt. Kurt's been on the show, Kurt Weinreich, but he would put wellness first. And from his background in physical fitness, tactical training, conditioning, martial arts, certainly that would make sense, right? But he put wellness first because everyone should be pursuing that in any profession and in personal daily living, right? So he's not wrong, man. You put that first. It starts with you, and then your culture is what comes next for him. So it dictates how individuals will reach out to utilize wellness services. All right. So now he's bringing in the organization. So he goes wellness, culture, and then leadership being necessary to be the example and emphasize the importance of wellness as an agency, right? So I'm not going to fully disagree. I appreciate the approach. Kurt's talking about it starts with you and it expands out from there. We got Carlos. Carlos said he would put leadership as being what establishes good culture and prioritizes wellness, right? The key operative is good leadership. He put that in there. Good leadership leads to good culture, and a lot of us have certainly seen ample amounts of the opposite. Mark Bouchard, Mark, who's been on the show numerous times, and we hope to have him on again pretty soon. They're all important, but he'd put culture first. So I like this. Like we've hit all three, as far as very experienced, insightful contributors. But culture is, quote, how we do things around here. He's not wrong, man. So you talk about culture, how it affects the group, how the group affects, what they're doing, how they're affecting each other. And then in a situation like first responder, it's, how they're interacting with the community, which is truly critical. I mean, that's the mission. And then he goes on to say, wellness is not a state of being. It's like bathing. It's a constant habit. I love that. I think it has to be part of your daily ritual. You have to build it in. We talk about that all the time. I write about it. You just got to make it part of your life. And it's got to be a forefront of just your state of being, your mindset, right? Things we talk about all the time. I also like how he just talks about leadership. It's not just an action or a position, right? So he talks about leadership being an action, not a position. Love that. All right. DC Andy McCurdy, wellness. You can't effectively lead or create a healthy culture if you're not well. Health, people, help people. That's legit, right? I'll probably read it again. Actually, I will read it again right now. You can't effectively lead or create healthy culture if you're not well. Health people, help people. So it's that top down again, right? And I'll say it works. If you're not doing that, it works until it doesn't, right? We all know that if we're not prioritizing wellness, it's not sustainable. We might have our periods of grind, but if that becomes our go-to, you're not going to function well. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're not taking care of yourself, your mind, your body, it will redline, it will fail you. And then if you are a leader, which we all are, that's kind of the point of this whole project and podcast, is reminding you that you are a leader at every stage of the game, every role, every position. You have a leadership role. You're a leader in the community, you're a leader in your organization, you're a leader in your family. Leadership matters, right? And if you're not demonstrating that for yourself, you're certainly not demonstrating that for anyone else. All right, Jordan says it's tough, but he'd put wellness first. Wellness is a priority. It's with the best leadership and culture, it's a requisite, is essentially what he's saying. So poor wellness will have subpar results. Fully agree, man. Martin says culture. If culture's good, then wellness is good, leadership's good, right? So chicken or egg. And that's kind of the point, right? You have a lot of this. So what I would say to that is that leadership creates a solid culture from top down, right? So that's part of the equation. Adam Boyd, I believe everything starts with wellness. Leaders who are not well won't effectively lead. This will affect culture. Yes, right, but we're kind of talking about the same thing in one vein. So, Sean, beyond the badge, Sean Nestor, leadership places priority on wellness and defines culture. We got Jason puts wellness first because you need to take care of yourself before you take care of other people. Yeah, man, it's that common phrase. I love that it's becoming more common, but you got to put your own oxygen mask on first, right? You can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. And we see it frequently in the wellness space. We see it frequently in the peer support space because people deeply care, right? So it's not, as always, non-judgmental, not pointing fingers. It'll work until it doesn't. And oftentimes we are redlining even when we don't realize, because it becomes one of those frog in hot water kind of situations. And then gradually it just becomes your normal. And all of a sudden the water is boiling and it's too late to jump out. And Chris comes out with good leadership will carry the other two. First, inward leadership leading self, followed up with outward leadership leading others well. And that may be a great one to end on. As I go through this span of a lot of valuable comments, and if I didn't read yours, it's not because it's not valuable. That's just a sampling of the kind of responses I got, either posted or messaged back. But without further ado, I will share what I lean towards and what I ended up sharing back as my personal opinion and my personal order. So what that is leadership, then culture, then wellness. And some of you guys are like, hell yeah. And then others are like, you don't know what you're talking about, but that's the fun of it. So why did I go in that order? Well, I put leadership first because we have to recognize leadership at all levels. And it starts with individual leadership. And another word for that, as I've said before, is ownership. So without leadership of yourself, you have no values, you have no rudder, you have no direction. You can't foster any positive culture. You can't contribute towards positive culture if you don't really know, what your own personal mantra, what your own personal direction or prerogatives are, right? We talked about values. So you don't have the conviction to invest in your wellness if you can't lead yourself, if you can't lead your day, if you can't chart out your intentions and just get them done as a leader would, right? As someone who is owning their destiny, forging that. So for those that say cultures first, I would just say only healthy culture can kind of dictate that, right? So you have to assume that, and then if you think about like a culture of leaders, it might be that the line level could could dictate a little bit. So some put culture first, and although that's critical, the reason why I didn't is because you have to assume something about that culture. You have to assume that it's a positive culture, a healthy culture, a culture of leaders. If it's simply a strong, so some say culture first, but for that I would say only a healthy culture that is a culture of leaders, right? So the leadership would be implied in there, and that's where I would edge leadership ahead. And then for those that say wellness first, while I don't disagree with the things that were said, I, and you can't function if you're not well, you have to start that and initiate it from somewhere and something. And you can't just have wellness for the sake of wellness if it's not defined. Um, Essentially, that's what we see, right? We see wellness being very loose. People can kind of self-define, and that's where I would put it back on leadership. So some would say wellness first, and maybe it's a chicken and egg thing again, right? Because I do agree we can't function for very long. We can't function sustainably if we're not well. But I think that in the chicken and egg argument, leadership has to come before wellness. If you just throw wellness out there, it could be kind of amorphous. We certainly see how subjective it can be, how loosely defined it is, how even me coining Blue Grit Wellness so long ago, when I was starting, I was super torn about whether to even use the word wellness. But I didn't want to do fitness because it just wasn't broad enough. Wasn't really talking about everything we need to talk about, and so there you have it. Leadership, culture, wellness, extremely valuable contributions, extremely valuable insights from everyone that chimed in. And after I posted my takeaways, Susanna also agreed with me. So shout out Susanna at Police Spirit. She put leadership first, so setting the tone, creating the weather, being curious, and investing in human capital. Man, profound, extremely fantastic description there. Culture and wellness will follow. So Tyler gave me some props there. Richard, great insights. Prioritization of leadership is a cornerstone of fostering a healthy organizational culture, and individual wellness is insightful. Right? He also echoed leadership begins with oneself. You take ownership of your actions, decisions, and development, and then it contributes to the culture of responsibility. He talks about cultural impact. Likely when this airs, scroll back a little bit. I probably have already posted screenshots of his response because it was very in depth and very considerate, right? So talks about cultural impact and then wellness and leadership. So immediate wellness might seem like the foundation, but without leadership, the drive to keep wellness can fade. All right, leaders at all levels must promote an environment where wellness isn't just an afterthought, but a priority. He goes into interconnectedness, engagement and growth, engaging with the community, but also considering individual perspectives, building intelligence. And so, very, very solid response there. So, appreciate you, sir. And Sabi, leadership, truly a cornerstone. He said, he said a lot of what Richard said in echoing. So, we're talking about building, leading ourselves, and then building a thriving environment. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for y'all. No doubt, all three are critical. All three are important. That's why, I talk about them in a trio. all the time. It's, really a strong focus of everything that we talk about or everything I write about. It has a tie into one of those things. You really can't avoid it, and may as well lean in and keep learning, keep growing in every aspect of those three. And they are one and the same when we just talk about being a healthy person, being a healthy soul, if you want to go there, being a healthy organization, a healthy society. It's going to take all three of those things um, in strength, in numbers. So thank you all for tuning in again. If you like this format, shoot me a line, right? I'm introducing more Solocasts in addition to our interviews. Ton of awesome guests on deck that are coming out. And of course, doing a little bit of these is a little bit easier, as you can imagine, with schedules and all that. So let me know if it's helpful. Give me your feedback. Give me your questions. Let me know what you want to hear about. And as always, throw a like, throw a comment, share it with a buddy, share it with your work, your crew. Everything, every little bit is extremely helpful in just helping us reach more people. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.